guys, it's your best fight friends. I'm Rachel. This is Kelsey. It is the Monday after what I wish was a glorious fight weekend, but if you watched our reaction to Triller Fight Club featuring Jake Paul versus Ben Askren, we didn't think it was so glorious. But today we're going to talk about Jake Paul, because regardless of all that...
Regardless, his boxing is glorious, especially in comparison to Ben Askren's boxing.
But when you're coming up in boxing, Jake Paul is very inexperienced, and he has shown improvement across his 3 fights. I've now seen all 3 of them, which is rare for me, as the type of boxing fan I am, for somebody this early in their career that I've seen all the fights. Well, the news that came out this morning, Jake Paul was like, come on, Daniel Cormier. He wants to jump up and fight Daniel Cormier. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's awesome. I think that, I think Jake Paul is great at drumming up interest in his career, and he keeps putting in the types of performances that are going to make him into the biggest star in the sport. He's already one of the biggest superstars in boxing, right? He's already
he has to be. I mean, he is. There's no arguing.
So he's already that, and he's been putting in the work, winning the fights, and I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome what he's doing. I think it's great for boxing. I also think I think what he's doing is great for boxing. I don't necessarily feel the same way about Triller anymore after that debacle from last weekend. But I do think that Jake Paul's boxing career is interesting, noteworthy, and we'll consider ourselves heralds of Jake Paul's new, when is he fighting Canelo? That's what I want to know.
We would like to give you some background. So if you don't follow boxing all the time, here's the deal. When you come up in the sport of boxing, it's different than the UFC. The UFC is picking up MMA people who already have some experience. Rarely are they picking up rookies, But in boxing, you have to build your career. And so often in boxing, what happens is you get a fighter and you take them out and you matchmake them with people that they're going to beat, but that is going to help them grow and learn. So what's interesting here is that Jake Paul gets to do this on the very public stage, and this doesn't happen for most boxers. Jake Paul, he's now in this unique position where he started this already under celebrity, so why shouldn't he make fights where he can make tons of money? It's there for him to do.
It's awesome.
Why not do it? But how can he grow and learn? Because he says he's serious about boxing, and it appears that he is. How can he grow and learn? Who should he fight next?
He needs to fight somebody who's better boxing than Ben Askren, right? So this time he fought a real fighter, but a fighter who made his living off wrestling in the MMA world. So fight a guy that's a little better. Tyron Woodley, former UFC welterweight champion, isn't a bad idea. Tyron Woodley is a lot better striker than Ben Askren.
So if you don't know, this was brought up because Tyron Woodley visited the locker room of Jake Paul before his fight on Saturday night.
Set up. This is a setup. I think he's going to fight Tyron next.
So this has already been put out there as a possible...
And if you're a matchmaking for Jake Paul is naturally larger than Tyron Woodley, right? Because Tyron Woodley weighs at the 170-pound welterweight division. Jake Paul's about 191. Tyron Woodley, he's lost 4 fights in a row in the UFC, right? So it's not like he's trying to fight a guy that's 30 years old and undefeated and the best striker in the sport. I think that's a good step up. I'm interested in that fight. I'm also interested from a competitive standpoint to him fighting Joe Fournier, who fought on the undercard, who beat up Raycon, who shouldn't have been in the ring in the first place. But brave guy to get in there and fight Fournier, who does have boxing skill, who's older than Jake Paul, but as big and or bigger. That would be a really interesting fight because I don't know who wins that fight. I think that Jake Paul has a lot of interesting fights ahead of him, and those are just 2 of probably many that could happen next.
DC even suggested Luke Rockhold.
Yeah, former UFC middleweight champion, I think.
They're really interesting. And so what I said earlier, what we're doing here is Jake Paul has 3 professional fights. It's his, and as far as I know, has no amateur background. So,
No, he has 1 amateur fight, and it was a YouTuber.
Okay, that was the YouTuber. Okay. So what would happen for a normal boxer is that they get to build up. So we're not looking for Jake Paul to go right in and be you got to fight the best of the best. That's not the thing yet. So even though some might be not real high on this whole, fighting MMA fighters and, basketball, so like this kind of thing. It is helping him to get time inside the ring in a real fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is definitely, it's very interesting.
Interesting, noteworthy. And I think, honestly, like, if you want to look at the positive things, Jake Paul is showing everyone in the world that you can do anything, right? We see that as a thing, but you really can. Sometimes you think, who would have thought Jake Paul, a guy that's famous from YouTube, could become a boxer and become a pretty good boxer? Well, you can. Now, Jake Paul didn't become it magically overnight. He's been working his tail off and doing all the things that's required, but he has done it, and he's done it under the heat of so many people who are so mad about it and don't want it to happen. And I think that to look at that as a lesson in life, to maybe sometimes, I know in my own life, I didn't always do things that I, because of somebody else's opinion or maybe my own limiting self-beliefs. Well, this guy's doing it and he's only 24. I think it's awesome. I think we should just accept it for what it is.
He doesn't seem to have any limiting self-beliefs.
No, he wants to fight Connor. And after the fight, I was like, so can he beat Connor? I don't know.
He had pretty good form in there. I liked how fluid he looked. Just to follow up, I saw that DC on the DC and Helwani show said that, like, no way. He's not fighting. I wondered because this might be a little payday, I'm getting a little payday. Although I think all the risk would be on DC because if he lost to Jake Paul, he would want to do that. Yeah, because DC's
not that far removed from being in a fight where if he had won it, he was the greatest MMA heavyweight champion ever, right?
Yeah. Now, I think that it is highly unlikely that he would lose to Jake Paul, but it is a lot of risk. He said he's not going to beat up some kid. Is basically what he said.
But see, I'm like, why not, dude? Like, if you're so mad, just get in there and beat him up. If you can beat him up,
I think that DC's too big.
That's interesting. I think DC was a great wrestler, but this dude could dirty box like a champ, and like he's good at it. So it would be interesting.
I told you it would be like James Toney in there,
He's in there boxing Stipe, and Stipe was a Golden Gloves champion as an amateur. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's good. Daniel Cormier is a good boxer.
Yeah. But DC said no. He suggests he likes Woodley. He likes Luke Rockhold. So that's that. I want to say just one other thing. Okay. I watched when Woodley went into the locker room with Jake Paul, and he had a former boxer in there, Jalon Love, and we know him as boxing fans. And I just wanted to say, when Jake Paul was like talking with Pete Davidson or Snoop Dogg, it was so uncomfortable. Like, and even when Ben Askren it was just like, But when I saw somebody just like standing back with a phone filming this little like chat they had in the locker room, I mean, Jake Paul was kind of likable. Like, It wasn't cringe-inducing. So if you've thought that about some of his on-camera stuff,
he's a person. Guys, he's a person.
Yeah, I would say also just check out that little altercation. I also kind of love dudes. I don't get this a lot in my life of like amongst women, but where dudes all kind of get together and like, oh, I got belts. I got like, they're all like, it's just a funny
it's
like
so
little
like
thing.
All of it's like completely avoidable.
But like, I don't.
They're all like.
I also kind of love it, like just dudes being dudes, and this is how they like puff up their chest and like, I'm not criticizing, like it's just what the male species sometimes does, and I think that it's kind of great.
An amazing spectacle.
Hey, I think we're an amazing spectacle. Look at us. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.